Boy, I got the T in me going back to back. Yeah, I'm going back to back. What's up, my dudes? Dean Wilson versus Vince Friese. Friese, don't get freezied. Okay, so the last video I just made talking about banned Vince Friese popped off quite a bit. I appreciate all the support on that one. But I didn't even have enough time in that video to talk about the whole ass separate incident that happened at A1. I mean, Vince Friese's created like 6 or 9 enemies in one round. It's actually kind of insane when you think about it, but holy shit, okay? Now let me come in here. I got to make a whole separate video on the Friese versus Dean Wilson incident, all right? So we get to the main event, okay? Pretty sure it was on lap 1. Like lap 1, right off the, I mean, literally they come around and then come over the finish line and then the triple. And Vince Friese cuts up like he's going for a last lap, last corner pass for the championship on Dean Wilson. Takes both of themselves out. And then Vince Friese apparently just like walks out of the stadium after that. So supposedly Friese has some sort of an injury here, by the way. It's kind of crazy how karma works, but yeah, he's got something going on, like a torn shoulder. I mean, it's just like, dude, oh my God. At what point, AMA, do you not realize, it's like, at what point do you get to a point where one of these riders becomes such a liability? It's like Vince Friese is going to be involved for taking out half of your field. I mean, seriously, like I'm not kidding when I say that. He's going to be responsible. He damn near injured Chase Sexton and Hunter Lawrence in the first heat race of the first round. Like, dude, before we even get started. And then he damn near injures Dean Wilson, injures himself. It's just like, bro, you know it's bad when Jason Thomas was interviewing, Hunter Lawrence, and he was like, yeah, bro, I've had some run-ins with Vince Friese too. Like, yeah, when the interviewer that hasn't even been out there for I don't know how many years is talking about Vince Friese, and he's not just involved in one situation, it's like multiple situations. The first round back into Supercross, and he was involved in all kinds of shit in the World Supercross that wasn't even AMA Supercross. It literally doesn't matter what series he's in or what championship he's in. He's doing the same shit, okay? It's just like, at what point? I can't believe Honda hasn't done something about this, because you think about it, it's like an 18th place if he's lucky in the main event. Vince Friese, took out Hunter Lawrence in that heat race. Honda on Honda warfare, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, he basically was the culprit of Hunter Lawrence not making it to the main event. Of course, Hunter Lawrence had the chance in the LCQ. I get all that, but he hit the ground hard in that heat race. So it's like, you know how much money they're putting in to have the Lawrence brothers together and in the main events, and Hunter Lawrence and all that effort they put in to get Hunter Lawrence to the 450 class and all of that. It's just like, holy shit. I just don't know how he's still out there. I don't know how Vince Friese's still out there. He's just doing the most clueless, just the worst timing of shit. Like, you wouldn't cut over like that in the first round, first heat race. You just wouldn't do it. You wouldn't take out Dean Wilson in the worst possible spot of the track. I mean, that's like a natural flowing corner. Even on MX Simulator, it was this way too, where it was like a real, almost like a big berm sweep kind of, but it just sweeped in a way where that wasn't really like a passing zone. You know what I mean? Especially not on the first lap. I mean, everybody's trying to go around that corner to hit that triple in or whatever it was. Pretty big triple in, right? So it wasn't even the kind of corner, and especially coming off of like a Supercross triple, it just wasn't the kind of corner that you would make like a block pass on, especially not on the first lap. And obviously too aggressive when both guys go down. I mean, that's not even really a question. Okay, but it's just like, how many things can Vince Friese do, bro? It just, I don't know. This shit just blows my mind, dude. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's like it's like Vince Friese is operating on just a different wavelength or something when he's out there on the track than anybody else. It's so weird. It's like he's on a different kind of level in his head where he's thinking he can do all these things that you just wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do that kind of shit. You know? And listen, all them boys out there have had one or two doozy stupid moments before. They've all had that before. You know, everybody makes that one or two mistake out there where it's just kind of a bonehead riding move, you know. But Vince Friese has, 420,000 of those. Every other time he's on the track, he's got 2 or 3 of those. So it's the repetitiveness of it and the continuing over and over and over. So anyways, yeah, all this happens between Dean Wilson and Vince Friese in the main event. And then, Dean Wilson talks in his interview after, like, this clown or whatever, like, not enough things to call him in the book, Yeah, I don't know. When's it going to stop, AMA? I mean, what's going to happen? Is Vince Friese, I mean, looking like we may not see Vince Friese in the next couple rounds, so everybody should be safe at least for a minute, but, like, he's going to be back. He's going to keep going. He's going to keep doing it. I mean, there ain't nothing going to stop the way Vince Friese rides, and the more stacked you have a class, it just seems to be worse and worse with it, because it's like Vince Friese is trying even harder because he knows it's like for him to even be like top 10 position, he's going to have to ride the most over his head kind of shit that he's ever done just to get a top 10. So it just seems as if he's pushing way over his head. He's pulling the trigger way too quick on different moves on the track. I mean, oh my goodness. This just reminds me a lot of even when he had that moment with Christian Craig. You remember that where he just blew him off the side of the track? Christian Craig was coming around. It's just, you can sit there and try to defend like case-by-case basis with Vince Friese and be like, well, that wasn't too crazy or whatever. But I mean, like I've said in my previous video, it's when you combine everything that he's done, that's when you start really being able to put more of the fault towards Vince Friese, because somebody that's some normal rider out there is just not involved in that many crazy ass situations. Oh, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? What a coincidence. You start getting to that point where, like I'm saying, it's the guy. It's not about the incidents individually. It's the guy himself. That's what I'm trying to say. Same way with this Dean Wilson incident, had that been like, oh, and by the way, let me just dig into this too. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, somebody's got to play the villain role, right? Somebody's got to be the villain out there. I totally agree with that. But the problem with that is, when you're back in 18th place, the villain thing doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's like you can't really be villain boy back there in 18th place. It just doesn't really hold the same weight. You know what I'm saying? You just can't really do that. Like, if you're going to be villain boy, you at least got to be like Barsha level. You at least got to be up there like top 10, something like that. Top 5 is even better. Like, I'm all down if you want to play villain role, but, like, there's kind of a difference between villain and just, like, being stupid. There's kind of, like, a difference there. And, with Justin Barsha, I feel like he definitely plays the villain role, but if Barsha was to do a lot of these things that Vince Friese is doing, I can give Barsha more of the benefit of the doubt, just because he is more on that kind of speed level. He is more on that kind of level where it would make a lot more sense for him to be doing it. Whereas Vince Friese is like, what are you doing, bro? You're 18th place and you're trying to do all these moves on the track like you're going for a championship. Like, what are you doing? That really does make a difference. You can't just look at it across the board like everybody's the same guy out there on the track. Because if that was the case, then the dude on gate 20 would hold it 5th gear tapped out into everybody into the first corner. You know, you got to understand your place and your position in the pecking order. That's part of race etiquette and racecraft. That's what it's all about. That's the point. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's just like if, let's say, Tomac goes down on the start, and then he's coming through the pack, right? And he's passing the guys in 20th or whatever. Well, if those guys in 20th tried to, you know, block pass or blow Tomac off the track as soon as Tomac gets around him, which they could if they wanted to, you know, but they wouldn't do that because they're like, oh, hey, that's Tomac. Like, there's no point in me, you know, like I'm Vince Friese on the first lap of A1 2024. There's no point in them doing that. That's why they don't do it. You see what I'm saying? You have to understand your pecking order. Vince Friese has never understood where he's actually sitting in the grand scheme of all the riders out there. You know what I mean? And you know, I get it, guys. Everybody's going for it. It's a stat class. I get all of that, okay? But there still is a certain... There's a limit there. There's a limit that if you cross that line, it's like you had better be the fastest guy out there to be doing that kind of shit. Like what Vince Friese did on the start and what he did to, like, you know, Dean Wilson in that corner in the main event. It'd be one thing if you were like the literal fastest guy out there because you could make moves like that and not even take anybody out. You know, like if Jet Lawrence would have done that kind of stuff, he damn near could have done all of what Vince Friese did, but nobody would have wrecked. You know what I'm saying? Because he would have been just fast enough to be that much in front of Hunter Lawrence where Hunter Lawrence wouldn't have ran into him in the corner. And also, he would have been able to maybe pass like a Hunter Lawrence in the corner where Vince Friese ran into Dean Wilson without taking out Hunter Lawrence. But it's magically here we are. Both instances where Vince Friese was involved, somebody's hitting the deck, or multiple people hit the deck because of both of those incidences. So it's a hazard. He is a hazard. He is a risk to the rest of your field, AMA. That's what you're getting into. It's like, what's the benefit of allowing Vince Friese to go out there and take out half of your field? I just don't understand it, man. So, either way, this is just a little continuation on the craziness, you know what I'm saying? Definitely let me know down in the comments what you boys think about it, and I'll see you on that next one. Later, dudes.